So I was in the process of building out something with AI. Background story: yesterday, I was driving a lot in the car, and I was just trying to capture insights and things I need to do from podcasts that I was listening to while I was driving. Because otherwise, I keep listening to them and I just forget at the end of the day. So what I wanted to do is essentially talk to Siri and then give Siri some sort of information, or trigger an app or trigger a recording. And I couldn't really find a good way while I was driving to do that. I have an app that lets me record voice notes. I think it's even called voice notes, but even there, it doesn't reliably work to capture notes from Siri. So anything hands off. Um, And I was like, okay, what would it take for me to just build that for myself? Because then I also have a lot more control over the workflow and, can edit the prompts. And there's things with voice notes that I do like and some I don't. But it's very important for me to capture these insights because otherwise the time spent on listening to podcasts is kind of useless, right? If I don't, if there's no action that comes out of it. And so I thought, I have like 45 minutes to the next call. So I thought I would try it out, try to build something. And I went from essentially what what does this need to have, right? Like what is my ideal world? And then work that back into like what is the most important workflow. And I think the most important workflow is the one I already described. And how can I make that the simplest way like thing possible, and maybe even not build any sort of app at all, just make it essentially some sort of no code solution. And what I came up with, you know and now I piped that into AI, saw if I like into Claude, see if it's feasible what I'm thinking, and I do think it is. So essentially what I want to do is just have Siri take my message, and Siri already does transcription for you if you talk to it. um what is it called, yeah, if you just write an iMessage, for example, right? Let me just see that my screen is shared. Yeah, looks fine. All right, so it does that already, which means I don't need to have any sort of transcription software that I need to build or need to buy or whatever. I just need to tell Siri what I want to send, as long as it's text, right? Maybe I can even make a phone call. And then I was like, okay, but how do I get that into an app or whatever, right? So the, the thing I could do is I could build my own app, but that's just like a lot of work, like a mobile app is just a lot of work. Which is actually my background. Like my background is building apps, but I'm just like, okay, never mind. That's not the goal. I want to get the job done. I don't want to, some fancy thing. Maybe long term, this can turn into something bigger. But the first step is not to build, for 2 weeks and then have something lose interest in along the way. But I want to build something really simple. Um, which means the simplest from my perspective is to use Siri and use iMessage to send a text to a phone number, and that phone number I control. So there's services that let you do that. Um, and that will just be a text message, SMS. And then that phone number, whenever there's an incoming message, will trigger a webhook. And that I can build with like some automation tool like Make, or I'm going to be trying out this one, N8N. And as you can see, I already started, some work on it. But I have a video on how to create, a Make workflow, for example. It's a different video you can have a look at. But yeah, so I started doing it and I was like, okay, why not just do it live, basically. So that was the thought process, and essentially what I want to do is I want to capture it in some sort of wiki, and we use ClickUp, for example. So every insight I have or anything that is like an action item, like a task, I will just send an SMS. Jesus, that will trigger a webhook here. That will go into some sort of model to take the information out of it, because there's going to be stuff that is not important in the message, right? So I need to figure out like, okay, is this an insight? Is this an action item, whatever, and maybe prefix that in the ticket to then sort it. I think a more robust approach would be using the ticketing tags, but I don't have those set up, and I think it's also just going to be make it more complicated. So the simplest would be to go into here and then have like insight as the deliverable, something like this, right? So that would be the minimum thing I would need in order to be able to capture these things here and then flesh them out later on. Maybe I can also see how to add a description and stuff like that in the ticket itself, and then I can just sort that wherever it needs to go later. But that could be, done manually in the beginning, and then later maybe there's even some sorting logic I can build, and there's other stuff. So this can get like very big, but right now it's all about keeping it very simple, so that it works for my use case. And why I want to show this is essentially that I want to show how easy it is to build internal tools now that, let's say, 2 years ago, you wouldn't have built this because it's just too much work. And it's just like, okay, it's important, but it's not so important that I can, take a day to do this. I can just, it's not important enough. But now it's possible, right? Like both with the kind of Claude projects that I showed before, how to use those, but also just like with something like this, and just knowing the APIs, and Claude can help us with that, right? Like you can say like, hey, here's MessageBird, here's Twilio, and these are the ones, and this is how you can do it. So just like use it as a kind of brainstorming help, even though it's not perfect, right? Like it's a tool. And I'm not going to use Cursor or Windsurf, which I normally use to build stuff, because I don't actually need to write any code, right? So even within AI workflows, code is still more work than no code from my perspective, at least. And over time, it maybe can become code. But for me, for now, this is enough. And so maybe we should just get started. I also looked at MessageBird, but they were like scheduled demo to set up an account. So I was like, nah. And what I did was like create a Twilio account. And now I need to get a phone number, right? So I need to be able to send a message somewhere. I think this, like I'm in Europe, so sending a message to a US number is probably going to be very expensive. So I'm going to stick to, I wanted to go to Germany, but Germany doesn't support SMS. So that's the problem. Like the numbers don't support it. So I'm just going to do the Netherlands, where I'm actually at right now, because it's still in Europe and I'm not going to pay any money per message, or it's free in my kind of phone plan essentially, right? But they do support SMS, which is important. And I can just take any of these numbers. And I have a trial, so I don't need to pay anything. This is my address. You need to create an address if you want to buy a phone number. But yeah, that's like just the setup of it. I think they do an okay job at like, managing it for you. And so here now we have a webhook, which is exactly what I want. So it says a call comes in, URL, primary handler, message. Okay. No options. A message comes in. So this is like SMS, right? And in this workflow, I have a webhook. Let's just test it out. So there's a test URL. I'm going to use that, throw that in here. Primary handler failed. Okay. Save configuration. Let's see. Can we test that in here? Like we're gonna learn on the job. Like I've used Twilio before, but it's been a long time. So let's just do that together. Messages. Phone numbers. Okay, I can just use iMessage, I guess. Yeah. All the can I? I'll just use it from my phone. Got to test that there later anyway. One zero two 4471. All right. Let's see messages. Okay, send a message. Can't see it. Messaging. Did I type it off wrong? Plus 970. Okay, wrong filter maybe. No. Works well. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna ask. Phone number on Twilio, but my messages are not showing So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a contact with this phone number, because then I can more easily ask Siri to send a message. Right, because I will have to say it in text or in speech. Send a message to, I don't know, Second Brain or whatever. I think I call it Second Brain. We still need to figure out what's going on here. Okay, it should be all like fine, I think. Active numbers, messaging. Okay. It's crying here because I haven't set up the configuration. So let's unblock this and fix it. Waiting for events. Okay, so I called the number and it works, which means the issue is somewhere else. Maybe it has something to do with the trial account. I'm not sure. Configuration. Webhook is there. Okay, it says messaging is only allowed there. So it won't work. Well, that's a problem. So AI led us astray. What is this? Ireland. What is this bullshit? Okay, let's see. Shall we buy the US phone number then? It's not great. But I hope it's not gonna bankrupt us. I need SMS. Beautiful experience. Let's see. I'll turn this to Twilio. Let's see if we can find some alternatives. What's odd, it's also not showing the phone call that I just made. Let's see. Can receive message SMS and send them. Okay. So it should technically be possible here. I love Java. All right, SMS. I don't think we would spend fucking 20 minutes just for this. That seemed like the easy step, but that shows you how bad some of these sources are. Send SMS. Okay. What did it say? Where numbers? No, I don't want to look at that. Numbers, your numbers, by numbers. Oh my god! Fuck off. So can you not even see them before, if they even have any? Like, what is this bullshit? Oh, God. Honestly, I'm gonna cry if this also doesn't work. That don't work. Okay. Your numbers, by numbers. Oh my. Bro, this is like fucking ridiculous. Okay, let's try again. Your numbers. Plus 31. 970. 1207. Can I see manage? Okay, let's see. So now we'll try again. Put the URL in there. The thing is, like, if this works, like, there's barely anything else to do but the fucking setup. It just takes ages. All right. What's going on here? The same issue. It's just so stupid. I just don't understand what's happening here. I guess I didn't see that on the phone. So logs. I can also sure. Okay, let's see. All right, let's not get hung up on this. I'll figure that out offline. Well, great video. That worked well. Okay. So what should happen is we want to make a new request. So I want to make a post request here. So let's assume stuff goes in here that looks something like this. Or we can get a example payload maybe. How does example payload look for a webhook? Well, see what that looks like. Okay, so that will be text, which will be the message itself. Send it there. Let's see that. Okay, so it says workflow was started. So now we have information here. And let's write a prompt with Workbench. I want to create a title for tickets that capture different kinds of actions. So I said action items and insights. So whenever there's some insight that I want to hold on to for the podcast stuff, that could be interesting. Make sure this is reflected in title. Only create the title for the ticket. So we'll start with the title, not the description, because that will be a bit wonky in the parsing in the tool chain. It's just to remind me that I need to do it or need to flesh it out more. For now, only return as the response, nothing else. So if we have it return nothing, then the response, then we will be able to keep it very simple, not parse. Yeah, so for example, always does this, right? Where it like puts it in brackets, but that means we need to parse the response afterwards. So for now, it's the easiest to just keep it simple. We can test this here. No, not here. Okay. I need to check in on the AI progress this week. Let's say something like that, right? Right, so this is task, okay, action item. Well, this is essentially a task, huh? So I'll take this out, edit this a bit, and then I'll say this because I only want the title. So now I can go and tap this. Let's see if it just creates a title for me. Okay, so it says action item, review weekly AI project progress, which isn't what I want really, but the input is also bad. Let's see if we can evaluate it, but this goes out of scope for now. So let's say check on which progress was made on AI developments in the industry. I don't know, something like that. This is essentially what I was trying to say, right? So yeah, so this is more useful and more in line with what I wanted. So now I can just take this prompt and throw it in here. Basic chain is probably good enough. We want to take as input from the previous thing, the text. Just connect this. I think I can just pull them, right? Let's see. Text. I guess I also haven't used this thing before. User text. All right, so essentially we're putting in the system message, which is the prompt, and then we have a user message, which is this one I want. So it's json.body.text. Right? Too stupid for everything. Okay, I was missing the dollar sign. All right, let's say test step. Prompt specified. Defined below. Okay, what's this? Test step. Okay, so now it ran the prompt and should produce a similar result to what I had before. Input, what's the output? Okay, task, implement Hello World program. Okay, so this step works as well. It just runs chain of prompts. One is the system message. The next one is the user message. You could add more here, right? Like more steps, which will, be useful if you have more complex workflows or you want a bit of a back and forth. Or let's say you want to review the step before and then run something else on top. You could say something like system. Can you do 2 user in a row? User maybe. Let's try. Review this task and make sure it is aligned with my priorities. Whatever. I don't know. Doesn't really make sense, but let's see what it puts out. All right. Okay, and this says task review, hello world task alignment with priorities. So essentially, if you want to do some sort of review and then improve the output again. You can do that here by adding more prompts or more steps rather. But I don't need this because it doesn't make sense. All right, so let's test it again. Okay, so this is what I want, and then this is what I want the ticket name to be. There's like a bunch more fields here that we can look at, but for now, let's say we just want this output here from the chain, which would be task implement hello world program, right? Okay, let's test it. We should have a ticket here, which is here. Maybe let's give this a due date. Can you do now expression? Okay, I think this is just JavaScript. Okay, we don't have a now. Let's see. So that should set a due date, because then I can sort them here to make sure that the newest ones are always on top. And then in here, I can essentially now, and this is mocking, like I said, the voice input via text message, which we didn't get to work for some reason. I don't know. I'll look at it later because I only have 9 minutes left. Yeah, essentially I could take this webhook and this endpoint and send it stuff from wherever I want, right? It could also be another type of input, anything that lets me connect to this webhook. And let's say I would have a insight from the podcast. I think yesterday, for example, I had an insight that you can use cursor to write and iterate on newsletters or other content. So that's an insight for me where I was like, okay, I've never really thought about it, that I could do that. And so I just want to try it out. But for now, this is like an insight where I later want to come back to and be like, okay, what does this mean? You know, like, how can I use this? Okay, so I guess the webhook here is not working if you're not testing. So let's use the production URL, which I guess is always running. Waveframe must be active. Okay, so now the thing needs to be active, which is here, I guess. All right, workflow started. Can I see logs somewhere? No, I guess not. Oh, this is a bug report. Workflow. All right, but we should be able to see it here. All right. So now I have an insight created here. Why wasn't it sorted? Yeah, sometimes ClickUp is kind of weird with this kind of shit. But yeah, so essentially I can really easily capture insights from some sort of input that was supposed to be Siri, which didn't work. But again, like, I'll figure it out. And then, yeah, we built an internal tool. Took like, I don't know, half an hour, 20 minutes was setting up SMS stuff, which is kind of annoying, but yeah, maybe the rest was helpful. The kind of approach to building it, like how to break it down, make it simple, and the rest is kind of TBD. All right, see you next time.